We're back. So in this little video, we're going to look at adding some pre-shaping to our reverb to make it work more efficiently, and also then suppressing it with a compressor. So this is where, again, with that simple process that we looked at in the first video, of just adding some pre-delay here, separating it back, it sometimes still leaves the reverb, confusing and echoing a bit too much and generating too much additional information. So these are some simple things you can do to get yourself or gain yourself a little bit more active manipulation of the reverb level. So one thing to really quickly clarify, right? If you just want to add a reverb to the voice in this instance, we don't need to separate the pre-delay. I'm going to do a separate video on separating the pre-delay from the reverb. That's if you are sending or you're attempting to send more than one thing to the same reverb, which is a good process to do. If you want to add different depths or different senses of positioning in that reverb, as in nearer and further away, that's when you need to isolate the pre-delay. For this, just adding a reverb to a vocal for some creative purposes, you don't need to do that. You can just use the pre-delay that's built into the machine, into the algorithm itself of the reverb. So that's just to clarify that. If you want to do that isolated pre-delay, that'll be in another video coming up soon. So, right, all we're going to do on the reverb channel that we have, we've got our own isolated reverb channel. There it is. Right, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to send, this has to go to my bus 32 as well. Ignore this. This is for my purposes, for the purposes of this demonstration. So I'm going to add, before this reverb, an EQ and add the Abbey Road EQ curve. Now, this is that one that I spoke to you guys in class, commonly used. These numbers are, well documented, and it really does add a very effective EQ shape process to make your reverb work more efficiently. So what you want is a 6 dB per octave high pass filter that you set to 600 hertz. That chops off all of the unneeded low frequency resonance that can cause muddying and clouding and murking and all this kind of stuff. Then you chop off the top end too from about 10 kilohertz. 10,000 cycles, right? And that also gets rid of shimmery, unnecessary levels of high frequency sustain. If you like that, then leave that in. This focuses the reverb right into the vocal range. Now, sometimes it's commonly dipped around 2K to stop the reverb responding to those harsher frequencies in the vocal. So it's only a couple of dB, a little bit of a drop. And it's that tooth shape, right? Tooth shape. That is the Abbey Road EQ curve. So it's a 600 high pass, a 2K dip, and a 10K low pass. Now, I'll switch this on in just a sec. So if you hear, I'll mute the backing track, press play, you can hear the reverb on the vocal as we left it before. And you can hear there's a lot of low reverberant information in there that adds to that sense of size that the room is created. Now, if I switch this on halfway through, you'll hear how much more efficient or how much thinner the reverb sounds. I got to stand my ground. I know I'm down for trying. I am better in denial, so it takes the weight out of the reverb and stops it adding weird weight and woolliness to the vocal. Now, when we put that in the track, you will see that you can get away with more reverb without it kind of mudding and dragging the vocal back even further. Let's switch it off. You can hear she sounds echoey and like as if she's in the distance a bit more. And there we have the reverberant qualities, but without that distance. That's just the thing. That's been used since the 60s. Abbey Road EQ curve has been used pre-reverb for a long period of time. Now, again, we want to steal back even more control. And this is the third stage of this. We've created a bit of pre-delay in the reverb itself 53 milliseconds. That's separated it a bit. We've also taken away some of the weight of the room reverb, before processing, and that's helped. But here's the big trick. This is the suppression. This is a side chaining trick using a compressor on the reverb channel that is set to side chain to the vocal. Now, if you're not sure what that is, that means that this compressor, although it's on the reverb channel, it isn't going to be listening to the reverb channel and responding to that. It's going to be listening to a clean, dry feed from the vocal channel here. So the detector, or the ear of this compressor, is now listening to a dry version of the vocal, not the wet version of the vocal. I'm going to turn off auto gain. It's not relevant in this instance, and you always turn off auto release. Right, we're going to make it respond quickly, and then I'm going to just use the release control in a minute to give it a sense of movement and groove, and I want it to release into the gaps. Set a fairly high single figure ratio, so that's kind of in that 9-10 zone, and then press play and just watch this vocal. So the dry vocal will duck the compressor down and the reverb with it, and in the gaps the reverb can come back up and breathe a bit. So we'll do this with the track muted again first.
I got to stand my ground. I know I'm down for trying. I am better in denial, so I hush. Don't make a sound. Feet don't fail me now.
And you can hear when she's singing, the reverb is ducked or suppressed. And as soon as there's a space, the reverb can open back up and add the effect that you're looking for. Now, sometimes this is where digital compressors really come into their own, because you have this blend control here. This is a mix control, and that will give you the compressed full output here, 100%, and just the uncompressed at 0%. So what you can do is, if that starts to feel a bit extreme, this on and off, but you like the timing of it, which can happen with faster deliveries, sometimes blending a little bit of the uncompressed signal back in can help.
I got to stand my ground.
And that plays into that thing that we spoke about in the compression week, where gating, when it's extreme, can be too on off and make it feel too jerky. Now we've got a lot of reverb on this, and it will blend into the track and not sound like the vocal is in the distance.
I got to stand my ground. I know I'm down for trying. I am better in denial, so I don't make a sound. Feet don't fail me now. I got.
And I'm even able to push that up by a good 3 or 4 dB more and get more reverb in the gaps, more of the kind of effect of the reverb without it dragging the vocalist into the background. I'm going to add one last thing. You've watched this far, why not watch it further? If you're using delays, if you put a delay on the voice, you want to put a delay on the voice, I'm going to do that by sending again to a new bus. Bus 3 is now going to be my delay. And I'm going to put a nice sort of tumbling tape delay vocal on there. Let's do that with a delay and use tape delay. It's a nice kind of rhythmic, and I mentioned this in class 2. This is actually 113-ish BPM. Now this is set to a quarter note. If I mute the backing track one more time, send it first. There we go. I'm going to send this delay also to my music bus initially, my vocal bus initially, so we can hear it. There we go.
My ground. I know I'm down for trying. I am better in denial,
So you can kind of hear that there is this sort of tumbling delay, but it can add confusion. And again, the time delays are good, but sometimes they get obscured by the actual beats. There's more energy in those beats. So if you take that off of sync, it gives you an idea of where that was set time-wise. And if you add sort of 10% to that, which would make it another, or maybe 5%, let's do 250 milliseconds on top of that. That's going to make that, 53 milliseconds on top of that's going to make it 584, something like that, 584, there or thereabouts, right? That's just set the delays back a little bit, not so much that they're out of time,
My crown. I know I'm down for trying. I am better.
but again, they're slightly confusing. I'd like to hear those tumble into the gaps. And this is again where you can just drag across your compressor setting that you've set on your suppression of your reverb. And that will also do the same thing. That will hold those delays down until there is space for them.
My crown. I know I'm down for trying. I am better in denial, so I hush. Don't make a sound. Feet don't fail me now.
And you can hear the space for the end words to be delayed in the gaps, and that's a common trick. Now, there's one big secret to getting delays working, and that is that you don't send them into your mix dry. Right now, these delays are independent copies of the vocal. They need some of the same reverb that is on the vocal in order to work in the mix properly, and that's really simple. All you do is you use your bus that you're using to feed your reverb, which in this case is bus 2. You can see that there, right? So I'm going to add bus 2 to my delay, send it to verb, and all I do is then send more or less reverb. I'm going to make this pre-delay as well, so I can turn the dry output down if I want to, and that will send more to the reverb and not.
My crown. I know I'm down for trying. I am better in denial, so I hush. Don't make a sound. Feet don't fail.
And then you get that really nice, strong, timely push into the gap that the end words of the sentence can have. And now you've got yourself a fully functioning process of vocal reverb and delay.
My crown. I know I'm down for trying. I am better in denial, so I hush. Don't make a sound. Feet don't fail me now. I got to stand my ground. I know I'm down for trying. I am better.
That's how you do it. Okay, take care. See you all later.